Welcome to a new episode of the Commerce Lab by Ecomcy, the place of everything related to Amazon, FBA, and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy, and today we bring you another session of questions and answers as we do every Tuesday at 5 p.m. GMT time. Thank you for everybody joining for the first time and for all those people returning from our previous sessions as well. So today is a very special day, I bet, for most of you. I mean, Prime Day. I bet a lot of you are checking your Amazon app and your sales every single second of the day. I'm doing the same with other clients and brands. So very exciting, very interesting things are seen today with our sales, advertising campaigns, which actually we're going to be building some case studies and some kind of material to then give a summary of what happened during this Prime Day. But so far, everything doing great. I mean, for sure, when it comes to PPC, things are a bit crazy for some of the brands, but however, for other brands, things are going very well. As everything, there for sure always going to be pros, are going to be winners in Prime Day, and for the others, that's not going to be the case. That's the reality of how this works. But I think it's very interesting what we're seeing so far. I mean, the amount of traffic for sure that we're seeing, at least in the last 24 hours, being huge amount of increase when it comes to sales. So yeah, looking forward to also see your experience and hear about them. So if you feel free to drop in the comments, let me know how is everything going for you so far. I know there are for sure gonna be some mixed feelings, but yeah, everything should be going smoothly, hopefully, if you are implementing some of the strategies we've been discussing so far. So one of the things for sure I want to highlight, which I think is one of the number one things that usually people do wrong and can be very costly, keep a close eye on your PPC, guys. So most of the time for these 2 days, I wouldn't advise to leave the PPC like with any limit, like without any a limit when it comes to the daily spend, because if you haven't done your proper optimization and you also were increasing your bids, we don't recommend to increase a lot, at least across all the board of your campaigns. Your spend most likely is going to be a lot much higher than what usually you used to spend on your PPC campaigns. So I will say make sure you keep an eye on your budget, and if you want to avoid spending crazy amount, put a daily fixed budget, which usually we would advise anyway this budget to be higher than your usual budget, because for sure your expenses are going to be higher, which is normal. However, you also want to put a control into that. Okay. And also, besides the PPC side of things, I think something very important, which you're also doing when it comes to tracking the performance of our brands, keep an eye on your inventory. So make sure you understand the sales velocity you're having across the board or across all your SKUs. Make sure that you're not going fully overboard when it comes to selling like crazy, because sometimes what will happen, we saw that happening last year, is that if you start selling a lot of the much more than usual, it's gonna basically ruin when it comes to your forecast for your inventory for the coming weeks and months. So you want to avoid also sell like 5, 6, 10 times your volume, and then you're going to be left with no basically inventory for the coming month, which we know what happens when you go out of stock, right? So you also want to make sure you control that. If you see sales start getting crazy, also make sure you deal down so you avoid going out of stock if you don't have more inventory coming in. Okay, so those are some of the two main tips I wanted to bring. For sure, the basics when it comes to tracking your performance is super important. So track how you're performing across the board when it comes to also the traffic, your position, and all that. You already know that. But I think the budget and the inventory is very important to make sure you take the most out of Prime Day. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to start bringing some of the questions for the last 7 days into the screen, the one we've been receiving. And also, before we jump into that, I quickly wanted to basically remind you of the episode we dropped yesterday Monday with Clydas from MCBs, which is actually also a full service agency similar to Ecomcy. And we're talking about basically what is the honeymoon period, or how you take full advantage of that. And then we also were talking about how you take full advantage of what we call PPC in terms of ranking and indexing for your keywords, which I know is a big issue for a lot of people. And it's also the typical questions we always get, right? Like why I'm not getting no impressions, why I'm not ranking. So definitely check that episode. It's very interesting. And tomorrow for sure we're gonna be dropping a new episode. So that for sure I'm gonna keep it secret. So you you basically find out tomorrow when it go live. Which usually, just to give a time frame, when episode goes live Monday and Wednesdays, usually it's gonna be between 5 and 6 p.m. afternoon time in the UK. And then on Thursday we have for us basically typical questions and answers in Spanish. Okay, awesome. So I think I talked too much. Let's dive into today's session, which is the question and answers. I'm gonna start covering some of the topics that people have been sending. So the first question of the day would be the following: should I divide automatic campaigns into close, loose, substitutes, and complements? Okay, so this one is definitely a PPC question. Basically, the person is asking, when you have an automatic campaign, you're gonna have the option to do close, loose, substitutes, and complements, which is a different type of targeting you're going to have within your automatic campaigns. So usually we prefer to have them divided, right? And the purpose of that is because it's going to be much easier to understand how each campaign is performing and to do optimization. Because what happens is that if you have all your basically different type of automatic targeting within the same campaign, which in this case are 4, it's going to be difficult for you to fully understand what is happening at the search term level in terms of where the search terms are coming from, and then to do a proper optimization, because sometimes you may find that close substitutes might be performing better than the rest, or vice versa. So you want to have full control of that and make sure that you can control the budget at each at the level of each of them, right? So usually I recommend having one campaign for each match type, and that's going to have you first of all control when it comes to your budget, better control when it comes to reporting the search terms each of them and asins are basically bringing you in terms of traffic and potential sales. And then you're also going to have a better understanding of placement, which you can also play with that if you want, which usually we don't advise to do at the automatic level. Usually you want to do that at the manual campaign level. Okay, so yes, I would advise you divide them to have better control, and this principle goes the same applies the same for manual campaigns. So usually in manual campaigns you want to have as many campaigns as possible when it comes to basically segmenting your keywords and your keyword targeting, because if you start putting everything within a single campaign, it's going to be super difficult to understand what is going on, do proper placement optimization, and also at the same time properly understand which keyword is performing better than the other one and have a strong control of them. So definitely make sure you have very organized structure when it comes to your campaigns, and also make sure the naming is done properly as well. Another mistake I see is that they do create the a lot of campaigns, so they do the division properly, but when it comes to the naming, they keep it very basic. And then if you start having 50-60 campaigns, so you don't have a very clear nomenclature that explains the keyword targeting, what that campaign is doing, what kind of placement is doing, and so on, it's going to be then difficult for you to have a very high level understanding as soon as you open your advertising manager dashboard, understand what you should be doing in terms of optimization. Okay, awesome. So next question: does product targeting advertise only on the competitor product pages? Okay, I think maybe what you're referring with this question is if when you do product targeting, the advertising just gonna appear under that asin, basically on the product details page of that asin, right? And the answer is no. Actually, what we found very interesting when it comes to product targeting is actually you also start appearing on specific keywords, right? Usually when you target an asin with product targeting, we have found that usually that is also going to allow you to advertise for the keywords that specific agent is indexing for, right? That's why actually on the product targeting campaigns, you can also adjust placements, right? Because advertisement are not just going to be constrained at the product detail page level, but actually can also start basically expanding the reach outside of that, which usually is going to be the typical results you're going to get when you search for a keyword that specific competitor was ranking for. So that's why with product targeting, you also need to be a bit careful, because if you start raising your bids too much in your product targeting campaign, that could eventually start basically advertising on keywords that those products are indexing for. And if you did your research correctly and you were basically also analyzing your competitor's keyword, you might be targeting the keyword twice with product targeting campaigns and also with exot and manual targeting campaigns. So make sure you keep a good control of your product targeting campaigns. I mean, for sure, you want to have some kind of product targeting within your funnel of PPC, but make sure that also it doesn't get overboard and basically start taking control of your manual targeting campaigns because of what I just explained. That's going to give you some placement on the keyword level as well of the product you're targeting. Okay, but yes, it's gonna appear on the product detail pages, and also it's gonna show a outside of that for the keywords that competitors is indexing for. Okay, awesome. Next question. Next question: should I run? Should I have automatic campaigns running from day one? Okay. Mm, automatic campaigns goes back to the question I was just explaining, which automatic, have close, loose, substitutes, and complement as the keyword targeting match and product targeting, because with automatic you can also target ASINs. And basically, usually I don't like to have automatics from day one, and I'm gonna tell you the reason. When you're launching the product for the first time, Amazon doesn't know what is going on with your product. Even if you do the best optimization possible, still Amazon have no data about your product. And this actually goes side by side with what we call the honeymoon period, which is the benefit of the app Amazon is going to give you. And basically, the honeymoon period, in essence, the only reason why that happens is because Amazon has no data. So when Amazon has no data, he needs to basically guess. And when it guesses, when you get the extra boost in discovery, right? So what happens with automatic? If you start running automatic from day one, and usually these go side by side with optimization of your listing. If you didn't do a great optimization of your listing, it might start showing you for keywords that maybe are not fully relevant to your product. And if you start getting enough traffic from those keywords and clicks and etc., Amazon might start linking those keywords to your list, regardless of having some kind of relevancy or not. So rather than doing that, I prefer to start very aggressive with my manual targeting campaigns, which is exact, phrase broad, and product targeting, and all those. Then start building a history of relating my main keywords to my product, so Amazon understands those are definitely my keywords. And we have found that usually within the first 2 weeks to 1 month of doing that, and then launching automatic is going to be a bit more efficient, because then it has some structure to basically start running from, rather than guessing, which in the long term can actually be detrimental for your listing, because if you start relating your listing to keywords that are not relevant, that's going to affect your conversion rate, and then basically you're going to get into some kind of a spiral of death, as Casey used to say. So yeah, definitely do that. Make sure you start very strong with your manual campaigns, very specific to the keywords you want to rank, usually top 5-10 keywords. Once you start some data going, start getting some sets, definitely Amazon is going to start indexing, relating that to your product, and then you can launch your automatic campaigns to be more efficient. Again, that's also going to depend on your budget, guys. If you have a huge budget and you want to have automatic from day one, also do it. However, that doesn't mean you shouldn't also have close attention to automatic, because usually if you want to have it from day one, you definitely can do it, but you need to make sure you have a close control of them, because if they start showing you to keywords, asins, things that makes no sense, that's gonna ruin your product roadmap in the long term. Okay. For Prime Day, do you recommend increasing bids or only budget? Yeah. So yeah, fun enough, this is what I was mentioning at the beginning of the episode. Usually I would advise you guys that you play with the budget right and bids. And the reason for that is usually increasing the bids is going to make you spend more, and most of the time that's not required for you to even get traffic and exposure. So I would rather play with the budget. So what I mean by that, if you're spending $20, I rather than, instead of spending $20, I will then jump and do $30-$40 for the Prime Day, keep my bids the same. Maybe what I will do is turn off some of my exploratory campaigns, keep my strong performance like exact match top placement campaigns that have performed for a while, and just double on the budget rather than the bids. Usually that's where you're gonna get the best buck for your money rather than increasing your bids, because if you increase your bids, first of all, most likely you're gonna be paying much more, because most people is doing that And second of all, once you increase your bids, then when you start drilling down on the bids after Prime Day, you might find some discrepancy in performance to try to get back where you were before. So we rather keep the same bids and just double down on the budget if you can, and make sure you basically keep doing what you were doing, but at the same time removing any kind of experimental campaigns and just do what it was working the best in terms of historical data for your product. Okay. Awesome. Next question. Should I negate my keywords from exot into phrase and broad? Yeah, this question is funny because usually I get this question, guys, like every single day. Either from people from my team, clients, consulting, always usually use negative keywords or not. It's a mixed feeling, to be honest, and it depends. I know is not the right answer to say depends, because that shouldn't be the answer, but in reality it depends, and I'm gonna tell you the reason behind that. So what happens is that if you're launching a product for the first time and you have no historical data, and you create exot phrase and broad, and the keywords from your exot are focusing towards top of the placement or ranking or SEO strategy, which most of the time should be ranking and getting control of those keywords from day one, you start negating those keywords on phrase and broad. Funny enough, we have found that when you download the report, right, from the last 30 days, you may find that the same keyword you had an exact, you may be targeting the keyword if you don't use exact negative keywords. Let's say use water bottle on exact, water bottle on phrase, water bottle on broad. We have found that sometimes water bottle perform better on phrase and broad. We get clicks and sales on phrase and broad, and the same keyword in exact is not performing, right? And we are performing with a lower cost per click, and we are delivering. So the reason for that is because regardless of using the same keyword, when you target with different targeting type, definitely there's some kind of difference when it comes to Amazon a high displays the keyword. So that's why you never want to negate the possibility from testing how it performs a different keyword match type from day one. You really want to let it run, see how it performs, and sometimes you may find that actually the keyword for some reason or another is gonna perform better on phrase than exact, and you might drill down on exact and scale your phrase campaigns or vice versa. Now, that's the first scenario. The second scenario, which is why I say depends, when you want to use negative keywords, is let's say you also launch exact, phrase, and broad, right? And the opposite happens. It may happen that if you had a keyword on phrase and broad, it doesn't target the keyword as an exact search term. It basically becomes a bleeder keyword, because maybe it's a keyword that has so many. It basically a keyword that we call a seed keyword, and start spending so much on phrase and broad that regardless of you trying to optimize it, it's always not going to be as efficient as just targeting as an exact match. So in that scenario, you may want to start negating that as an exact and a phrase, and just focus on those search terms as an exact. So that's why it's always going to come down, guys, to data. Don't take a fixed method or way of doing PPC and just think that's the only way, because I can tell you from experience, sometimes we're experimenting a strategy with brown brand. We do exactly the same for that brand that is doing super huge, good performance in terms of tacos, ACOS, revenue, and everything. We do exactly with the same with our brand. It doesn't work because it's not copy paste thing. That's why it's for some brands we do one type of campaigns, for other brands we do other type of campaigns, and basically there isn't a one way of doing things. The best way of doing things is testing, using data, and use the data as a feedback loop to basically decide if that strategy is working or not, and adapt from there. Okay, awesome. So next question: how to optimize the back end of my listing? Okay, mm, I think yeah, this one would be a great question from Vanessa Hung. Basically the queen of flat files, which is the back end of the listing. And but yeah, when it comes to back end, the best thing that you can do, and we do that all the clients from day one, is request what we call the category listing report. So how you get access to that? You're gonna go to your Amazon Seller Central account, and you're gonna open a support case. You're gonna open a support case, and you're gonna ask Amazon, can you please unlock the category listing report, right? Then gonna unlock this report. This report, what it does, you can download the report. Once you download the report, that report is gonna give you all the back end of the product. It's gonna tell you what are your titles, search term, bullet points, etc. But you're gonna find a lot of things that are empty, such as, for example, attributes, special occasions. Some pros have extra things such as the variation thing, like the material, uh, things like that. That sometimes you're not gonna find that on the front end, and you can use those empty spaces to optimize for ACO. And also, the good thing of making sure you complete as much of this backend as possible is you basically protect your listing from getting people from the other sellers trying to get into your backend, and making you index or attribute for keywords that might be suppress your listing or change your category or so on, right? So that's what we call the backend optimization. So you download the category listing report. Um, you make sure you optimize the most important attributes, and basically you then re-upload that to your Amazon account. Just make sure you're very careful with this, in terms of how you use your catalog listing report and make the changes, because you want to avoid changing something that can they index your listing or suppress it. So usually what I would advise you to do is here to educate yourself from a lot of sources out there online. You can learn how to use flat files, or yeah, basically understand how these things work, because if you just do it random and then upload it and overwrite things, or even delete your listing, which it can happen if you don't use the right tabs, it can actually be worth optimizing. So, but if you do it properly, it's super powerful, right, guys? The category listing report. Okay. If you have any question, or would like me to connect with somebody that can help you, feel free to send me a message or something. I will put you in contact with the people that can help you with this. Okay. Awesome. Next question. I'm getting impression on my PPC campaigns. What to do? Yeah. So this one, actually, we covered this on, if I'm not mistaken, on the report with 𝐂𝐈𝐊𝐄. A very nice episode talking about exactly this issue when you're getting no impressions, no traffic, all this. And the best thing, guys, that you can do when you're having these issues, in terms of impressions and clicks, is check your category node. Make sure your category node is exactly as your competition. That's the first thing. Second thing, make sure you have the keyword integrated within your listing. Third thing, make sure your bids are high enough. Fourth thing, make sure the budget of your campaign is high enough. Fifth thing, make sure your campaigns are not suppressed or disapproved. And usually that should basically be the five main things to check. I'm pretty sure if you check those five, you should find the solution. Usually, most people find the solution with impressions not being high enough, then the budget, and if that doesn't fix it, usually it's the listing issues I just mentioned. Okay. Great. So next question. Okay, my campaigns keep getting disapproved. What should I do? Yeah, this one's actually go attached to the question I just covered. So disapprove means Amazon is basically not approving the listing to run PPC. Most of the time, it's a trigger when it comes to the information you have in your listing and the keywords you're trying to target. You're gonna find this happening a lot with keywords that have to do with pesticides, pain relief, CBD, things along those lines. Usually, what you need to do to disapprove it is raise a case with Amazon. Sometimes it gets disapproved by mistake, but most of the time, it's actually keywords that you have in your campaign or listing that you just need to change, edit, put new keywords, and that should fix the issue to get your campaign running again. Okay. Awesome. So next question. What Amazon editorial recommendation? Okay, Amazon editorial recommendations is basically when you this is a service similar to Vine. So basically, this service is going to allow you to basically pay people to write about your product, and you're gonna find them usually on page one, right? You're gonna find them on page one, they're gonna say editorial recommendation, and they're talking about your product, like features, what people think about the product, and basically a detailed explanation of why they're recommending the product. So this one as Amazon buying, it can be dangerous because these people have the freedom to share whatever they want into the editorial recommendations. So it can be positive or negative. But I mean, for sure, if you want to do this, is because your product is great, right? So you want to get more exposure. So actually, you should be getting better results out of it. When it comes to funding these editorials, so usually there's a lot of services out there. So some services I can think on top of my head. I think Seller Rocket is one of them. I can think right now. There are so many that you can use basically to find editorials. So basically, you get in contact with them, and they basically are like they have their own platform to publish these things, and it can help a lot because it can get you exposure on page one for your specific main keywords, and it can help you a lot when it comes to bringing that extra traffic that can allow you to compensate the expenses of PPC and everything that we've been speaking so far. So editorial, very nice. Just make sure that you vet the service you're using, and you're actually working with people that like is very reliable when it comes to doing editorials. But yes, I mean, I think the criteria for, if I'm not mistaken, the criteria for Amazon editorial is, I mean, it's very easy to get. I mean, for sure you need to have more than 4 stars rating. I think over 100 reviews. It doesn't need to have some kind of claims. I think other things that need to avoid is mention to specific type of drugs, things like that, like when I already know religion, things like that. And I think those are some of the main ones. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, another one that I just remember now of the criteria is the positioning. So you also need to have proven track of your organic ranking. So to be able to get a editorial recommendation, usually you should be already on page one of the queue, or you want to get the editorial recommendation. But that's it. I mean, maybe I'm missing some of the criteria. Make sure you do your diligences. But yeah, it's very good tool and to explore for sure if your product is already established and you want to bring it to the next step when it comes to bringing extra traffic to your listings. Okay, awesome. So let's see if we have any other questions. Yeah, guys. So I think that's it, at least for today. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get more questions in the coming days. But yeah, thank you very much for sending them our way. Remember, anytime we're here to help. So even if it's not during this session, you can always reach out through email or social media. We got people in their place to answer your questions. Yes, and remember that all these sessions, for everybody jumping for the first time, just in case you might not know, these live recordings are gonna be basically uploaded to our YouTube channel, podcast channel, and you're gonna be able to see them once this streaming goes off. So don't worry if you're just joining late. And that's it. So thank you very much. Remember to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep reaching amazing people like you, keep growing our community. Yeah, share as much knowledge when it comes to scaling and growing brands on Amazon. Okay, so have an amazing one. Keep enjoying Prime Day. Stay calm, guys. Everything's gonna be well. Yeah, enjoy it. Okay, have an amazing week. Bye bye.